Podcast. Lampowie.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This one's going to be really interesting. You actually sent us a whole bunch of stuff on this topic. So we've got a podcast transcript, a couple of blog posts, even a news release straight from the source. And it's all about FC St. Pauli leaving Twitter. Well, I guess X is what we're supposed to call it now.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, isn't it?
It is. So much more than just a soccer team ditching social media, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about this whole collision we're seeing between sports and politics and the online world. Like, how much influence do these platforms actually have? And then you've got these massive personalities like Elon Musk kind of shaping the whole conversation.
Right. Which brings us to the heart of this deep dive, FC St. Pauli. They're known for being super outspoken about activism, anti-fascism, social justice, the whole nine yards. So why would a club with that kind of reputation leave a platform where they could be, well, shouting their message from the rooftops?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? You'd think they'd want to stay and fight the good fight. But even before they officially left, there were already rumblings, especially from fans and in podcasts like the St. Pauli POP blog. Some people were saying just being on Twitter/X like contradicted everything the club stood for.
Interesting. And it wasn't just the general atmosphere on the platform either, right? This was all happening right before a major election in Germany. So there was this added layer of concern about X becoming this, what did one of the blogs call it, a digital battleground?
Exactly. You've got the whole Elon Musk factor, right? His take over the name change to X, it definitely shifted things. And then you throw in Donald Trump's return to X after winning the election. And then there were even rumors about Musk maybe being involved in some new government agency under Trump. People started getting really worried about X being used to influence elections, and not just in the U.S.
Wow. So how's a team like FC St. Pauli, known for taking a stand, supposed to deal with a situation like that? It's like a minefield.
Well, they laid out their reasoning pretty clearly in their news release. They talked about the rise in racism and hate speech, conspiracy theories running wild, and just an overall lack of moderation. They even said that constructive dialogue basically became impossible on the platform.
Okay, so they said it was basically impossible to have a decent conversation, but didn't they originally say that they needed to stay on X to combat that exact stuff? Like, they were worried about ceding the space and letting the wrong voices take over. It seems kind of contradictory.
It does, doesn't it? And the St. Pauli POP blog made this really interesting comparison. They said, staying on X in that kind of environment, it's like fighting windmills, you know, that classic Don Quixote image. Like, you're battling this force that you can never really defeat.
Ah, okay, I see what they mean. But if staying and fighting is off the table, what's the alternative? Just disappear from social media completely?
Well, the blog suggested a few different paths FC St. Pauli could have taken. One idea was to focus on platforms that aren't as, shall we say, turbulent. They specifically mentioned Bluesky and Threads, which are kind of the new kids on the block attracting a different crowd.
Yeah, I've heard of those. Honestly, I'm a little curious about them myself. But even if they're not as chaotic as X, it's still social media, right? You're always going to have some level of, well, mess.
True.
Yeah.
Which leads to another interesting suggestion from the blog. What if FC St. Pauli had just built their own Mastodon instance? Someone even offered them like the perfect domain name, Spali.social. It's like aligning your online space with your values.
Hold on a sec. I know Mastodon is getting a lot of buzz, but can you give me the quick rundown? What is a Mastodon instance anyway? It sounds kind of intimidating.
You're not the only one who feels that way. It's definitely different from the social media we're used to. So Mastodon is part of this thing called the Fediverse. It's basically a decentralized network of servers. So instead of one giant corporation controlling everything like on Twitter, you have all these independent communities that connect with each other.
So it's more like a bunch of small interconnected towns instead of one massive city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And each instance is like its own little town with its own rules and vibe. For a club like FC St. Pauli, with its focus on community and fan ownership, it could have been a really powerful move. They'd have way more control over the environment, the moderation, everything.
They could have built their own little digital utopia.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal, but let's be real here. Not everyone's super tech savvy. Would the average fan actually make the jump to something like Mastodon?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, the blog did point out that 400,000 Taylor Swift fans managed to migrate from X to other platforms in just a single week. So if they can do it, it's not impossible. But it definitely takes effort and a clear strategy. Okay, so we've got FC St. Pauli, a club known for doing things their own way. Trying to figure out this whole social media puzzle. They could have stuck it out on X, tried to find calmer waters on other platforms, or built their own digital haven. What I'm wondering is, what does their final decision actually tell us? What were they really hoping to achieve?
Well, to really understand that, I think we need to dig a little deeper into the critiques and potential downsides of each path. It's not as simple as just picking a platform and calling it a day.
All right, I'm ready to go deeper. Lead the way.
Yeah, it's not so simple, is it? In the St. Pauli POP blog, they actually pointed out a pretty interesting irony with the whole Mastodon idea.
Oh, Didale irony always makes things more fun.
But, FC St. Pauli, they're all about independence, right?
Yeah.
Fighting against corporate control. But with Mastodon, they'd still be relying on a platform that's ultimately owned and controlled by Elon Musk, even if they had their own little corner of it.
That's a really good point. It does kind of go against their whole power to the people thing.
Right. And then there's the whole question of could they actually pull it off?
Mm-hmm.
Even if fans were willing to move to Mastodon, could FC St. Pauli handle it? The blog brings up some good points about moderation and engagement. They even said that the team was already struggling to keep up with hateful comments on, get this, Facebook.
Wait, really? Facebook? I mean, I know it can be a bit of a Wild West sometimes, but I figured they'd have a handle on moderation by now.
You'd think right.
Mm-hmm.
But the blog author actually told this story about a phone call they had with someone who used to work for FC St. Pauli. And apparently the team just didn't have the resources to properly moderate all their social media. So it makes you wonder if switching to a whole new platform would have just made things worse.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's one thing to have the ideals, but actually putting them into practice is a whole other story. It sounds like no matter where they went, they would have been facing an uphill battle.
Exactly. And I think that speaks to a bigger issue here that goes beyond just FC St. Pauli or even sports.
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing really makes you think about the platforms we choose and how much power we're giving to people like Elon Musk. I mean, he could literally change the entire landscape of online conversation with one tweet.
It is kind of scary when you put it like that. It's like we're all on his digital playground and he makes the rules. But even if we don't love those rules, it feels like what can we really do about it?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Finding that balance between using these platforms to connect and have our voices heard, but also being aware of the downsides and the power dynamics. It's tough.
And it sounds like even a club like FC St. Pauli that's so committed to social justice is still struggling with those questions.
For sure. They did end up leaving X, but they moved to Bluesky, which, ironically, is another platform controlled by a tech billionaire.
That did surprise me. If they were so worried about corporate control, why not go all in on something like Mastodon, even with the challenges?
It's a good question. Maybe they felt like they needed a platform that was already established and had a bigger audience, even if it meant compromising on some of their ideals.
It's like they were caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to do the right thing, but realizing there's no perfect solution. I mean, if they're struggling with this, what hope is there for the rest of us?
Well, that's where I think things get really interesting. This whole FC St. Pauli situation, it's not just some abstract news story. It's like a real-life example of the challenges we all face in trying to figure out this whole digital landscape.
It's true. It's like they're holding up a mirror to all of us. So how do we find that balance? How do we make sure our voices are heard, but also not get lost in all the noise, or worse, become part of the problem?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think the first step is just being aware of the challenges and the choices we're making.
Awareness is key, for sure. But what's next? What can we actually do with that awareness?
That's where the real deep dive begins, for all of us. And to help you with that, I think it's worth taking a closer look at some of the details of FC St. Pauli's decision.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. All right, so let's get down to it. We've talked about FC St. Pauli leaving X, the other platforms they could have chosen, and this whole debate about online activism in the digital age. But I think what's really stood out to me from all the stuff you sent over is just how tricky it is to actually get this right.
It's a tough one, isn't it? You've got a club with a really strong moral compass.
Yeah.
But they're in this situation where there's no easy answer, no clear right way to go.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting to me. It's not just about a soccer team and their social media. It's like this perfect example of the challenges we all face when we're trying to make a difference online.
I agree. It really forces us to ask some hard questions. Like, what are we willing to compromise on? What really matters when we're choosing where to spend our time and energy online?
I mean, think about it. If a club like FC St. Pauli, with all their resources and dedicated fans, if they're having trouble navigating all this, what does that mean for regular people? Or smaller groups trying to make their voices heard? It can feel pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it really shows how important it is to be strategic and think things through. We can't just assume that posting on whatever platform is going to automatically lead to change. And that's where I think this deep dive gets really valuable for you. It's not about finding the one right answer, because honestly, there probably isn't one. It's about asking yourself the right questions. and figuring out what works for you and what you're trying to accomplish.
So let's bring this back to you. If you were FC St. Pauli, knowing everything we know now about the different platforms, what would you have done? Would you have stuck with X and tried to fight the good fight, switched to a newer platform, or gone all in on Mastodon and built something new?
I think that's a great question to end on. And there's no right or wrong answer. What matters is that you think about your options. You weigh the pros and cons, and you make a conscious choice that feels right for you.
That's a good point. It's easy to get stuck in the what-ifs. But at the end of the day, we all have to figure out our own path in this crazy digital world. And sometimes the journey is more important than the destination.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by having these conversations and asking these tough questions, we can actually start to create a better online space for everybody. One where different voices can be heard, where we can actually have real conversations, and where we can work together to make things better.
I like that. A little bit of hope to send us off. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Well,
And good luck out there in the digital world.
St. Pauli Pop Podcast. St. Pauli Pop.